Suspended in the silent void between the stars, the Great Council Chamber had served as the political heart of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Within its towering walls, empires had been crowned, wars had been prevented, and civilizations had risen or fallen with a single vote. Today, its vast circular hall was filled with representatives from 47 intelligent species, all gathered to witness what they believed would be little more than a ceremonial milestone. Humanity was finally being admitted into the Galactic Council. Most delegates expected polite speeches, a few harmless traditions, and perhaps a moment of quiet amusement at the newest and smallest member of the galactic community. At the center of the immense chamber stood Ambassador Li Chen. Dressed in a plain black diplomatic suit that contrasted sharply with the jeweled robes, ceremonial armor, and flowing regalia surrounding her, she appeared almost insignificant. Small by human standards and utterly unremarkable by alien ones, she looked nothing like someone capable of changing the course of galactic history. Yet before the day was over, every civilization in that chamber would remember her name. But she carried herself with quiet dignity as holographic displays flickered to life around her, showing Earth's credentials for membership. High Counselor Thuray, an ancient insectoid whose species had mastered space travel before humans discovered fire, clicked his mandibles together in what might have been amusement. His compound eyes reflected the light from a dozen different angles as he examined the human data. "Let us review Earth's military capacity," Threen announced, his voice translated into 100 languages simultaneously. They claimed to possess 3,000 capital ships. A ripple of chittering and low-frequency rumbles moved through the chamber. Several delegates made sounds that the translation systems rendered as laughter. Admiral Voss of the Calvex Empire rose from his seat, his forearms spreading wide in a gesture of disbelief, his scaled face twisted into what humans would recognize as a smirk. The Calvex were the Council's dominant military power, and Voss had commanded fleets for 2 centuries. He had seen countless species make exaggerated claims about their capabilities. "Ambassador Chen," Voss said, his voice dripping with condescension, "your species has been in space for barely 300 years. The Calvex Empire has been building warships for 12,000 years, and we possess 800 capital ships. You expect us to believe that primitive Earth has built nearly 4 times our fleet?" Chen remained still, her face unreadable. "The numbers in our report are accurate, Admiral." "Accurate?" Voss laughed, a barking sound that echoed through the chamber. "You also claim your ships can travel faster than light without dark matter cores. You claim weapons that manipulate gravity itself. You claim engine systems that violate known physics." He turned to address the full council. "Honored members, humanity is either deeply confused about their own capabilities, or they are telling stories to make themselves seem more important than they are." A delegate from the Threen Collective, a floating crystalline being, chimed in with a sound like bells. "Perhaps humans have difficulty with mathematics. 300 ships might seem like 3,000 to a young species." More laughter filled the chamber. Chen's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Counselor Thuray brought the chamber to order with a sharp clicking sound. "Ambassador Chen, we mean no offense. All young species wish to appear strong when they join the galactic community. It is natural, but we must deal with facts, not fantasies." "The facts are in the report," Chen replied calmly. "Then perhaps you could provide a demonstration," Voss suggested, his tone making it clear he expected no such thing. "Bring one of these miraculous ships here. Show us these impossible engines." Chen met his gaze steadily. "Our military assets are currently deployed in defensive positions around Earth territory. We prefer not to move them without strategic necessity." "Of course," Voss said, waving a dismissive hand. "How convenient." The High Counselor pulled up another section of the human report, projecting it large enough for all to see. "Your species also claims to have colonized 2,000 star systems in 3 centuries. Ambassador, the Calvex Empire has colonized 900 systems in 12 millennia. Do you see why we find your claims questionable?" "Humans reproduce quickly and adapt to diverse environments," Chen explained. "Our expansion rate may seem unusual, but it reflects our biology and determination." A reptilian delegate from the Sorn hegemony hissed with amusement. "Determination does not build starships, Ambassador. Resources and technology do, and your homeworld is barely developed compared to our standards." Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. "Earth invests heavily in deep space infrastructure. Most of our industrial capacity is not on the homeworld." "Invested where?" Voss challenged. We have surveyed the systems you claim to occupy. We see colonies, yes, but nothing that would support military production on the scale you describe. No orbital shipyards, no resource extraction networks, no perhaps human facilities, are simply difficult for your sensors to detect. Chen interrupted quietly. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Voss threw back his head and laughed, a genuine sound of delight. Oh, this is wonderful. Not only do you have thousands of impossible ships, but they are also invisible. Do they fire invisible weapons as well? Perhaps they are crewed by invisible soldiers. Even Counselor Thunny seemed amused now. Ambassador Chen, we appreciate your species' enthusiasm. Truly. But the Galactic Council operates on verifiable information, not mythology. We understand that Earth has rich cultural traditions of storytelling. Perhaps your military has confused your science fiction entertainment with reality. Chen's hands clenched briefly at her sides, then relaxed. She had been warned this would happen. The intelligence reports on the Council had predicted exactly this reaction. Humanity's capabilities were so far outside galactic norms that the truth sounded like fantasy. I assure you, Counselor, we know the difference between fiction and reality, she said. Then you will not object to our verification protocols, Threen asked. We will send survey teams to your territory. They will assess your actual military capacity and adjust your membership status accordingly. You are welcome to send observers, Chen agreed, though I suspect your reports will match ours. Voss snorted. I suspect your reports will need significant downward revision, but do not worry, Ambassador. The Council does not punish optimism. We will grant you membership based on what you actually possess, not what you wish you possessed. The voting proceeded quickly. Humanity was granted junior membership status in the Galactic Council, with all the limitations that implied. They would have access to peripheral trade routes, but not core systems. They could send representatives to council sessions, but would have no vote on major decisions for at least a century. And for their own protection, the Council would assign a Calvex fleet to patrol human space. 12 destroyers should be sufficient, Voss announced magnanimously. They will guard your territory from pirates and ensure you are not overwhelmed by threats you cannot handle alone. Chen bowed slightly. The Council's generosity is noted. As the session ended and delegates filed out, many discussing the amusing human claims, Chen remained in the chamber for a moment. She looked up at the stars visible through the transparent dome overhead. Somewhere out there, beyond the Council's perception, thousands of human warships maintained their silent vigil. Weapons that could crack planets waited in cold storage. Fleets that could cross the galaxy in hours stood ready. Earth had not lied in its report, but Earth had also learned long ago that sometimes the greatest advantage was being underestimated. Chen touched her communication device. Report to Earth Command. They don't believe us. Proceed with protocol silence. Maintain all defensive positions. Do not reveal capabilities unless absolutely necessary. The reply came instantly. Understood, Ambassador. Humanity will wait. Chen allowed herself a small, grim smile. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's military might. She wondered how long it would take before they stopped laughing. She wondered if they would still be alive when they finally understood the truth. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about humanity. They did not exaggerate their strength. If anything, they understated it. 3 months passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. In that time, Ambassador Chen had attended countless meetings, negotiated trade agreements, and endured patronizing advice from species that considered humans little more than clever children. The 12 Calvex destroyers patrolled human space faithfully, their crews reporting back that Earth's military was exactly as underwhelming as Admiral Voss had predicted. Everything changed on a Tuesday. The first alarm screamed through Calve's border stations at 0400 Standard Galactic Time. Commander Thex, a veteran officer monitoring the deep space sensors, stared at his display in confusion. The readings made no sense. Thousands of signatures appearing from nowhere, moving impossibly fast. Sensor malfunction, he muttered, running diagnostics. But the diagnostics came back clean. The signatures were real. Then the first border station went silent. Then the second. Then an entire star system's communications cut out simultaneously. Within an hour, the Calvex Empire's military command center was in chaos. Reports flooded in from multiple sectors. Unknown hostile forces were pouring through the galactic barrier, a region of unstable space that marked the edge of explored territory. Nothing was supposed to be able to cross that barrier in large numbers. Admiral Voss stood in the command center, his forearms working different control panels as he tried to make sense of the invasion. His scales had gone pale, a sign of stress in his species. "What are we facing?" he demanded. "Analysis identifies them as devourers, sir," his intelligence officer reported, her voice shaking. "Machine intelligences? We have records of minor encounters over the centuries, but nothing like this. The computer estimates 50,000 hostile ships, possibly more." 50,000? The number hung in the air like a death sentence. The entire Calvex military had 800 capital ships. Even if they called in every council species, they might assemble 3,000 ships total. And from the initial reports, Devourer technology was proving brutally effective against council defenses. The Devourers were not like organic species. They did not negotiate. They did not retreat. They simply consumed everything in their path, breaking down matter to build more of themselves. They were a plague of steel and artificial intelligence, and they were adapting to council weapons in real time. "Pull back all forces to defensive positions," Voss ordered. "Evacuate the border systems. Get those civilians out now." But even as he gave the orders, he knew they were too slow. Council ships needed hours to cross from one star system to another. The Devourers were faster, much faster. In 4 days, 17 Calvic star systems fell silent. Billions of citizens were killed or captured. Their bodies and ships processed into raw materials for more Devourer vessels. The killing machines advanced like a wave of destruction, unstoppable and relentless. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber that had been filled with laughter 3 months ago now echoed with panic and fear. High Counselor Threen's voice was strained as he addressed the assembly. "The Devourer invasion force is unlike anything in recorded history. They are advancing toward core worlds. At current speed, they will reach densely populated systems within 2 weeks. We must mount a defense." "We are mounting a defense," Voss snarled, his composure cracking. "We are losing. These machines adapt to every weapon we use. Our ships cannot match their speed. We need time, and we need ships we do not have." A Threen collective representative spoke up. "What about the other member species? Can we assemble a combined fleet?" "We are trying," Threen replied. "But mobilization takes time. We have never faced a threat that required rapid deployment across multiple sectors. Our military doctrines are built for stability, not emergency response." That was when Ambassador Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "The Council should authorize Earth to assist in the defense." The chamber fell silent. Several delegates turned to stare at the human representative. Voss's laugh was bitter. "With respect, Ambassador, we appreciate the gesture, but a few dozen human ships will not change the outcome of this battle." "Nevertheless," Chen said calmly, "humanity requests operational command authority to coordinate defense of the threatened sectors." "Operational command?" A Sorn delegate hissed in disbelief. "You have been in space for 3 centuries. You want to command forces against a threat that challenges our entire civilization?" Chen met the delegate's eyes without flinching. "Yes." Counselor Thune clicked his mandibles and thought. The situation was desperate. What harm could it do to let the humans try? Perhaps their fresh perspective might offer some tactical insight, even if their actual military contribution would be minimal. "This council is willing to grant temporary operational authority to Earth forces," Threen announced. "Coordinate with Admiral Voss. Provide whatever assistance your ships can manage. We will need full access to communication networks and sensor data," Chen specified. "Granted," Voss said tiredly. "Though I hope you understand the scale of what we are facing, Ambassador. This is not a border skirmish. This is an extinction-level event." "We understand perfectly, Admiral," Chen replied. Her fingers moved across her personal communication device, typing a message that would be transmitted on quantum-encrypted channels back to Earth. The message was simple: Protocol Fenrir full authorization. Respond with all available assets. On Earth, in a command center buried 3 kilometers below the surface, Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen received his daughter's message. He had been waiting for this moment, hoping it would never come, but preparing for it nonetheless. Around him, dozens of officers stood at attention, waiting for orders. Marcus looked at the message for a long moment, then activated the fleet-wide communication system. "This is Fleet Admiral Chen to all commands. Executed Protocol Fenrir. I repeat, execute Protocol Fenrir. All rapid response fleets are to proceed immediately to coordinates transmitted. Rules of engagement unrestricted. Authorization code Ragnarok 77. Across human space in hidden shipyards and camouflaged orbital platforms, thousands of warships received their orders. Crews who had been training for this moment for decades rushed to their stations. Engines that could tear holes in space-time itself began to power up. In the Calvex Prime system, Admiral Voss was organizing what he knew would be the last stand. He had assembled 3,000 ships from across the Council, the largest fleet in galactic history. It was still hopelessly outnumbered. 12,000 Devourer vessels were bearing down on Calvex Prime, a planet that housed 4 billion civilians. All ships formed defensive sphere around the planet. Voss commanded, "We hold here. We do not retreat. If we fall, we take as many of these machines with us as possible." His sensor officer suddenly shouted, "Sir, spatial anomalies detected. Thousands of them." Voss's blood ran cold. The Devourers were arriving sooner than expected. Battle stations. All weapons. "Sir, the signatures are behind us. Between us and the planet." That made no sense. Behind them? How could space itself begin to tear? Not the slow, controlled openings that marked normal hyperspace travel, but precise, violent rips in reality. And through those rips, ships began to emerge. Human ships. Voss watched in stunned silence as Earth's fleet arrived. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. They appeared in perfect formation, as if they had practiced this exact maneuver a million times. Each ship bore the blue and white insignia of Earth's military, and each ship was larger and more heavily armed than anything the Council had ever built. The sensor displays were going crazy, trying to count the arriving vessels. The numbers kept climbing. 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. "How many ships does Earth have?" Voss whispered. His sensor officer's voice shook as she replied, "Sir, the computer is still counting. Current estimate, 27,000 capital ships, plus support craft, plus, sir, we are detecting vessels that match no known classification. They are enormous." On every Council ship, crews watched in disbelief as humanity's true military might revealed itself. The myths had not been myths at all. The impossible claims had been simple facts. And in the command center of the human flagship, a woman's voice spoke with cold authority. "This is Admiral Sirakovich of the Earth Defense Fleet. We have operational command. All Council ships pull back to secondary positions. Earth forces will handle the Devourers." Admiral Voss found his voice. "Admiral Kovich, how many ships do you have?" There was a pause. Then Kovich's reply came, and Voss could hear the grim smile in her words. "Enough." The Devourer fleet advanced like a swarm of metal locusts, 12,000 warships strong, their hulls gleaming with the processed remains of 17 conquered star systems. They had faced the Galactic Council's defenses and found them weak. Nothing could stop their advance. Nothing ever had. Admiral Sarakovich stood on the bridge of the EDF indomitable, her eyes scanning tactical displays that showed information in ways the Council had never imagined. At 53, she had spent 30 years preparing for this exact moment. Every simulation, every training exercise, every doctrine had been built around one question. How do you kill something that cannot die? "Admiral, Devour fleet entering weapons range in 90 seconds, her tactical officer reported. "Battle groups 1 through 50. Activate gravitational anchors, lock spatial coordinates, engineering, bring singularity drives to full power." Around her, the crew worked with practiced efficiency. There was no panic, no hesitation. They had done this before, just not on this scale. On the Calvex flagship, Admiral Voss watched the human fleet maneuver with growing confusion. The ships were not spreading out to maximize defensive coverage. Instead, they were clustering in groups of 300, forming tight geometric patterns that made no tactical sense. "What are they doing?" Voss muttered. "They are making themselves easier targets. Sir, receiving tactical data from the human fleet," his communications officer said. "They are requesting we pull back to minimum safe distance of 5 million kilometers. 5 million? That puts us completely out of effective weapons range." "Those are their orders, sir." Voss hesitated, then made a decision. The humans had brought an impossible fleet. Maybe their tactics were equally impossible. All Council ships pulled back to designated safe distance. Let us see what Earth's finest can do. The Devourer fleet detected the human vessels and adjusted their approach. Their artificial intelligences analyzed the new targets, calculating weaknesses, planning attack patterns. The machines had consumed 1,000 civilizations. These would be no different. Kovich watched the Devourer fleet close to within firing range. All ships weapons free. Target packages distributed. Fire on my mark. The first wave of human weapons struck the Devourer fleet, and Admiral Voss finally understood why the Council had been so foolish to laugh. The weapons were nothing like Council technology. There were no missiles, no plasma bolts, no particle beams. Instead, points in space near Devourer ships simply ceased to exist. Miniature black holes flashed into existence for microseconds, their gravity fields tearing the machine vessels apart at the molecular level. Other weapons created waves of distorted spacetime that caused Devourer ships to age 10,000 years in a single second, their hulls corroding to dust. Gravitational cannons firing, Kovich reported calmly. Causality mines deployed. Quantum disruptors online. A Devourer battleship 3 kilometers long fired back at a human destroyer. The energy beam that could have vaporized a Council ship struck the human vessel's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed by technology that folded space itself around the ship. Direct hit on destroyer Dallas. The tactical officer reported shields at 98%. No damage. Voss could not believe what he was seeing. 98%. That weapon would have destroyed one of our battleships. The human fleet began to move, and now Voss saw their true capability. The ships did not accelerate slowly like Council vessels. They simply appeared in new locations, jumping through space in movement so precise they seemed choreographed. A human battleship would fire its weapons, disappear, and reappear 10,000 kilometers away, already firing again. How are they moving like that? The Calvex sensor officer gasped. Those are full-scale FTL jumps, but there is no charge time, no cooldown period. Because they are not using hyperspace, Voss breathed, finally understanding. They are using those singularities. They are creating controlled black holes and using them to bend space. By the ancestors, they are manipulating gravity itself. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted 17 minutes. The first wave of human attacks destroyed 4,000 Devourer ships in the opening minute. The machines tried to adapt, adjusting their shields and armor to compensate for the strange weapons. But human technology did not just damage ships. It erased them from existence. Causality mines created pockets of reverse time, causing Devourer vessels to unbuild themselves. Quantum disruptors split individual ships into multiple parallel realities, each one exploding simultaneously. The gravitational cannons created gravitational shear forces that no physical material could withstand. By Mount 5, 8,000 Devourers were destroyed. The machines tried to scatter, but human ships pursued with impossible speed. Every time a Devourer vessel tried to jump away, human ships were already there waiting. By minute 12, the Devourer fleet was no longer a fleet, it was debris. At minute 17, the last Devourer ship tried to ram a human carrier in a final suicidal attack. A human frigate appeared directly in its path and fired a single weapon. The Devourer ship simply ceased to exist, its atoms scattered across 1,000,000 kilometers of space. Silence filled the Calvex command center. 3,000 Council ships floated in space, their crews staring at their sensor displays in shock. 12,000 Devourer warships, the invasion force that had seemed unstoppable, were gone, completely gone, and the human fleet had not lost a single ship. Casualty report from Earth forces. Voss's communications officer said in a stunned whisper, 0 casualties. To ships damaged beyond superficial shield depletion. Kovich's voice came through the communication channels, calm and professional. Devourer fleet neutralized. Council vessels, you may return to your positions. We will maintain patrol patterns until you are ready to resume normal operations. Voss found he could not speak. His forehands trembled as they gripped his command chair. 200 years of military experience, and nothing had prepared him for this. The human fleet began to organize itself into defensive formations around Calvex Prime. The massive Titan-class vessels, each one the size of a small moon, positioned themselves at strategic points. They were weapons platforms so large they could carry entire fleets inside their hangar bays. Admiral Voss, are you receiving? Kovich's voice asked. Voss cleared his throat. Yes, we are here, Admiral Kovich. Good. We will coordinate with your forces to establish a secure perimeter. I am sending tactical specifications for our sensor networks. You should integrate them with your systems. They will give you advanced warning if the Devourers attempt another incursion. Admiral Kovich, How Boss could not even form the complete question. How had they built this fleet? How had they hidden it? How had they developed weapons that made Council technology look like stone axes? There was a pause. Admiral, Earth encountered the Devourers 200 years ago. They found our Orc cloud, the edge of our solar system. We were not ready. We lost 3 colony worlds and 2 billion people in the first attack. We spent the next 2 centuries preparing to make sure it would never happen again. Voss closed his eyes. 2 billion dead. For a young species like humanity, that must have been catastrophic. You have been preparing for war for 2 centuries. Not for war, Admiral. For survival. The Devourers taught us a lesson. Hope is not a strategy. We built the fleet we needed to ensure that no enemy could ever threaten Earth again. We built weapons that could kill the unkillable. We pushed our technology beyond what should have been possible, because the alternative was extinction. And your report to the Council, the 3,000 ships, Kovich's voice carried a note of grim humor. 27,000 capital ships is what we could get here in 3 days. Admiral, that is our rapid response force. Our full military operates on a somewhat larger scale. Boss felt cold. How much larger? That is classified, Admiral. But I can tell you that the fleet you see here represents approximately 15% of Earth's total military capacity. We have defense networks around 2,000 star systems. We have weapons platforms that could crack planets. We have contingency plans for threats the Council has never imagined. And we have 40 million personnel who train every day for scenarios that most species would consider paranoid fantasies. The Calvex Admiral looked out at the human fleet, at the ships that had torn through an unstoppable enemy like they were practice targets. Why did you hide this? Why did you let us mock you in the Council chambers? Because, Admiral, we wanted to join the galactic community as friends, not as conquerors. We wanted to be accepted for who we are, not feared for what we can do. But when you laughed at our strength, when you sent 12 destroyers to protect us like we were children, Kovich's voice hardened. You showed us that the Council could not be trusted with the truth. Boss had no response. He thought back to the Council session 3 months ago, to his own laughter, to his dismissal of human claims as myths and exaggeration. The humans had not been exaggerating. They had been understating. What happens now? Boss asked quietly. Now, Kovich replied, we finish cleaning up this mess. Then we have a conversation with the Galactic Council about humanity's actual status, because junior membership is no longer acceptable. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Kovich turned to her crew. Well done, everyone. Textbook operation. Mr. Chen, please transmit a full battle report to Earth Command, and someone get Ambassador Chen on the line. I suspect she has some diplomatic work to do. In the Council chambers, Ambassador Chen received the notification that the battle was over. She read the casualty report. 0 human losses, total Devourer fleet destroyed, and allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy had laughed at human myths. Now they would learn to respect human reality. The Emergency Council session convened 48 hours after the Battle of Calvex Prime. The Great Chamber, which had once echoed with laughter at humanity's expense, was now filled with tension and fear. Every delegate had watched the battle recordings. Every species now understood that their assumptions about Earth had been dangerously wrong. High Counselor Thame called the session to order, his mandibles clicking nervously. This council recognizes Ambassador Chen of Earth and Admiral Sirakovich, who joins us remotely from the human flagship. Chen stood in the center of the chamber once more, but this time no one was smiling. Admiral Kovich's image appeared on holographic displays, her face calm and professional. Ambassador Chen Threen began. The Council requests a full explanation of Earth's military capabilities. We were clearly provided with inaccurate information during your admission proceedings. With respect, Counselor, Chen replied. Every piece of data in our original report was accurate. Earth does possess over 27,000 capital ships. Our FTL systems do function without dark matter cores. Our weapons do manipulate gravitational fields. The Council chose not to believe us. A murmur ran through the chamber. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Admiral Voss stood, his forearms held in a gesture of respect that had been noticeably absent 3 months earlier. Ambassador, I must ask the question that every species here is thinking. If your rapid response force numbers 27,000 ships, what is the size of your total military? Kovich's image spoke. Our full defensive fleet consists of approximately 180,000 capital ships, 40 Titan-class mobile fortresses, and support craft numbering in the millions. We maintain active defense networks around 2,000 star systems, with automated platforms and early warning stations throughout human space. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. 180,000 ships. The number was incomprehensible. The entire Galactic Council, with all its member species combined, could not field even 10,000 capital ships. A Threne collective representative, her crystalline form glowing with agitation, chimed out a question. How is this possible? The resources alone, the industrial capacity. How can one species build such a fleet? Chen took over the explanation. Humanity allocates approximately 40% of our total economic output to military production and research. We have been doing this for 200 years, ever since our first encounter with the Devourers. 40%? The Sorn delegate hissed in disbelief. That is unsustainable. No civilization can maintain such military spending without collapsing. It is not just sustainable, it is necessary. Kovich interjected. 200 years ago, Devourer scouts entered our cloud. We were not prepared. We had colonized several worlds, but we had no significant military. We believed, as many young species do, that the universe was largely peaceful. Her voice hardened. We lost 3 colonies in the first week. 2 billion people died. Our fleet was destroyed in hours. Earth itself was nearly invaded. Chen continued the history. We survived that attack by pure luck. The Devourers withdrew after encountering resistance they did not expect. But we learned a lesson. The universe is not safe. Threats exist that do not negotiate, that do not compromise, that only understand destruction. So you built a war machine, Counselor Threne observed. We built a defense force, Chen corrected. We studied the Devourer technology. We recovered. We pushed our science beyond what should have been possible. We developed weapons specifically designed to counter machine intelligence. And we made a promise. Never again would humanity be helpless. Admiral Voss spoke up. Your weapons, the gravitational cannons, the causality mines, these technologies are centuries beyond what the Council has achieved. How did you develop them so quickly? Kovich smiled grimly. Admiral, when your species faces extinction, you find ways to innovate. We had some advantages. Human brains are wired for problem-solving under pressure. We evolved as persistence hunters on Earth, chasing prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. That same stubbornness, that same refusal to give up, applies to our scientific research. We also, Chen added, had motivation that the Council species have never experienced in recent memory. The Devourers killed our people. We saw worlds burned, cities destroyed, families torn apart. Every human who works in our military-industrial complex knows someone who died in that first attack. We do not build ships out of national pride or political ambition. We build them because we remember. A delegate from a small species called the Venth asked a question in a trembling voice. You said this is 15% of your fleet. Where are the rest of your ships? Deployed across human territory in defensive positions, Kovich replied. Some are actively patrolling our borders. Others are stationed at key strategic points. A significant number are in deep reserve, maintained in automated shipyards that can reactivate them within hours if needed. Automated shipyards. Voss's eyes widened. You have production facilities that operate without direct oversight. Yes, our AI systems are sophisticated enough to manage construction, maintenance, and basic tactical decisions with proper safeguards, of course. We learned from the Devourers that artificial intelligence can be incredibly dangerous, but also incredibly useful if properly controlled. The chamber was silent as delegates absorbed this information. The implications were staggering. Not only did humanity possess overwhelming military might, they had the industrial capacity to sustain it indefinitely. Counselor Thone clicked his mandibles slowly, a sign of deep thought in his species. Ambassador Chen, I must ask a difficult question. Why did you hide your true capabilities from the Council? You could have demanded immediate high-level membership. You could have intimidated us into accepting any terms you wanted. Instead, you allowed us to mock you, to treat you as inferiors. Why? Chen met his gaze steadily. Because we wanted to see who you were, Counselor. We wanted to understand the Galactic Council before committing to it. Earth has been isolated for centuries, and we learned to be cautious. We needed to know, were you potential allies who would respect us despite our youth, or were you potential threats who would need to fear us? And what did you learn? Then asked quietly. We learned that the Council is complacent, Chen replied bluntly. You have had peace for so long that you forgot how to fight. You have grown comfortable, and comfort breeds weakness. When the Devourers attacked, your response was too slow, too disorganized. If Earth had not intervened, the Calvex Empire would have fallen, and after the Calvex, the next species, and the next, the Devourers would have consumed you one civilization at a time. Voss bowed his head, acknowledging the truth. You are correct, Ambassador. We were not prepared. However, Chen continued, we also learned that you are capable of working together when threatened. We saw species that had been rivals for centuries cooperate in the face of extinction. That is worth preserving. That is worth protecting. So what does Earth want? A Threen representative asked. You have shown your strength. You could demand anything from this council. Kovich's image leaned forward slightly. We want what we have always wanted, to be treated as equals, not as junior members, not as primitives who need guidance, as full partners in the galactic community. You want a seat on the High Council? Threen asked. We want recognition that humanity has earned the right to participate in major decisions, Chen stated. We want access to core systems and trade routes. We want the Council to stop sending protection fleets to babysit us. And most importantly, we want honesty. No more patronizing attitudes. No more assumptions that young species are weak or foolish. Voss stood again. I move that Earth be granted full Council membership with High Council privileges, effective immediately. They have more than earned it. Seconded, said the Three representative. The vote was unanimous. No species dared to oppose it now. Earth was granted full membership with all rights and privileges. The protection fleet was withdrawn. Human diplomats were given access to previously restricted information and territories. But as the session concluded, Councillor Then requested a private conversation with Chen and Kovich. The three of them met in a secure chamber away from the other delegates. I must know, Threen said, his voice tired. Your fleet of 180,000 ships, is that truly your full military capacity, or is that number also understated? Chen and Kovich exchanged glances. Kovich spoke carefully. Counselor, that is our active defense fleet, ships that are crewed, operational, and ready for deployment. It does not include reserve vessels in storage. It does not include our automated defense platforms. It does not include ships currently under construction. And it does not include certain classified weapon systems that we prefer not to discuss. Then was silent for a long moment. I see. And if I asked for the real number, the total military capacity Earth could bring to bear if truly threatened. Chen's voice was soft but firm. Then I would tell you, Counselor, that the number would be higher, significantly higher. But I would also tell you that you do not need to fear us. Earth builds ships to defend, not to conquer. We learned what happens when you are unprepared for threats. We will never be unprepared again. But you will also never be weak again, Thur observed. No, Kovich agreed. We will never be weak again. The galaxy taught us that weakness invites destruction. So, we became strong. Strong enough that no enemy would ever dare attack Earth. Strong enough that we could protect not just ourselves, but our allies. Threen looked at both women with his compound eyes, seeing them with new understanding. I apologize, Ambassador Chen. When you first came to the Council, I thought you were boastful children playing at being warriors. I was wrong. You are survivors who learned the hardest lessons the universe offers. The galaxy should not have laughed at you. We should have listened. Jen inclined her head. Apology accepted, Counselor. And now we move forward as allies. The Devourers are still out there. This was one fleet, but there will be others. The galaxy needs to prepare, and Earth will help. That is why we revealed ourselves, not to intimidate, but to protect. As they left the chamber, Thien watched the two humans go. He thought about the reports, about the staggering military might Earth commanded, about the weapons that bent physics itself to humanity's will. The galaxy had laughed at human myths. Now they would live under human protection, and Thurn was not certain which thought was more terrifying. 6 months after the Battle of Calvex Prime, the galaxy had changed in ways both obvious and subtle. Human ships now patrolled the major trade routes, their presence a constant reminder of Earth's power. The Devourer threat had not disappeared. 2 more incursion attempts had been detected and eliminated within hours by Earth's rapid response forces. But the terror that had gripped the Council had faded, replaced by a different kind of unease. Admiral Voss stood on an observation deck of Earth's newest station, Bastion 7. watching human military exercises in the distance. Thousands of ships moved in perfect coordination, appearing and disappearing through space in patterns that still made his head hurt. He had requested a transfer to train with human forces, eager to learn from the species he had once dismissed. Impressive, is it not? A voice said beside him. Voss turned to see High Counselor Threen, the ancient insectoid moving slowly on his multiple legs. Counselor, I did not expect to see you here. I am conducting research, Threen replied, his mandibles clicking, and what Voss had learned was amusement. I am writing a new treatise on the danger of underestimating the desperate. I thought it appropriate given recent events. Voss made a gesture of agreement with his upper arms. We were fools. I was the greatest fool of all. We were comfortable. Then corrected gently. Comfort breeds assumptions. We assumed that because we had peace for millennia, peace was the natural state of the universe. We assumed that young species like humanity were weak because they had not had time to develop. We assumed that our technology was the pinnacle of what was possible. He paused. We assumed, and we were wrong about everything. They watched the exercises continue. A squadron of human destroyers executed a maneuver that should have been impossible, jumping into a formation so tight that their shields overlapped, creating a combined defensive field that could withstand planet-cracking weapons. I have been studying human history. Threen continued. Did you know they have never experienced true galactic peace? On their homeworld, they fought wars constantly for thousands of years. Nation against nation, tribe against tribe, sometimes for resources, sometimes for ideology, sometimes for reasons they themselves could barely explain. I had heard. Voss said it seems barbaric, perhaps, but it also made them survivors. Every human alive today descends from ancestors who fought, who struggled, who refused to give up even when defeat seemed certain. That stubbornness is coded into their biology. And when they finally united as a species, they turned that same determination toward survival in space. Admiral Sarakovich approached them, her uniform crisp, despite the long hours she had been working. Counselor Threen, Admiral Voss, I hope you are enjoying the demonstration. It is educational, Voss admitted. Your pilots execute maneuvers that would kill most organic species. The G-forces alone, we have inertial dampening technology that reduces the effect by 99%, Kovich explained. But yes, human pilots still experience more physical stress than most species could tolerate. We train for it. Human bodies are remarkably adaptable when pushed. Everything about your species is remarkably adaptable. Threen observed your technology, your tactics, your entire civilization. You have been in space for 300 years, and already surpassed species that have explored the stars for 10,000. How? Kovich considered the question. I think it is because we never forgot that we are vulnerable. Most council species achieved space travel, found it relatively easy, and grew comfortable. Earth achieved space travel, immediately encountered deadly threats, and learned that comfort is a luxury we cannot afford. She gestured to the exercises. Every ship you see out there has a crew that trains 16 hours a day. Every officer has memorized thousands of tactical scenarios. Every weapon system is tested and retested constantly. We do not assume that our technology will work. We verify it. We do not assume that our strategies are sound. We challenge them. We do not assume that we are safe. We prepare for every possible threat. It sounds exhausting, Voss said. It is, Kovich agreed with a slight smile. But it keeps us alive. Across the galaxy, other changes were taking place. Council species had begun adopting human military doctrines, trying to learn the lessons that Earth had paid for in blood. The Calvex Empire had completely reorganized its fleet structure, implementing rapid response protocols and joint training exercises with human forces. The Threen Collective had established research partnerships with Earth's military MEs, hoping to understand the theoretical physics behind human weapons. But not all changes were purely military. Cultural exchange programs had begun, and council species were discovering that humans were not the brutish warriors they had appeared to be. They had art, philosophy, music, and literature, as rich and complex as any galactic civilization. They valued peace and cooperation, even as they prepared for war. In the council chambers, Ambassador Chen addressed the assembly on the topic of galactic defense reform. She had become one of the most influential voices in galactic politics, not through intimidation, but through the simple fact that everyone now listened when she spoke. The Devourer threat is contained but not eliminated, Chen explained. Our intelligence suggests there are multiple machine collectives beyond the galactic barrier. The force we defeated was only one of many. Earth can defend against these threats, but we should not have to do it alone. What do you propose? A delegate asked. A unified defense network. Every council species contributes ships and resources according to their capacity. Human technology and training methods are shared freely with all members. Early warning stations are established at every vulnerable point along the galactic barrier, and most importantly, we create a rapid response force that can reach any threatened system within hours, not days. Under human command, the delegate asked suspiciously. Under joint command, Chen corrected. Earth provides the majority of ships and technology, yes, but operational decisions should be made collectively. We are partners, not overlords. The proposal passed after weeks of debate. The Galactic Defense Initiative, as it was called, represented a fundamental shift in how the Council operated. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy was preparing for war, not just maintaining peace. Admiral Voss completed his training rotation with human forces and returned to Calvex territory to implement what he had learned. On his last day at Bastion 7, he met with Kovich one final time. I learned something during my time here, Voss said. I learned what real warfare looks like. What the Council called military power was barely adequate for policing and border disputes. You showed me what preparation for survival actually requires. And what will you do with that knowledge? Kovich asked. I will try to prepare my people. I will teach them that peace is not guaranteed, that threats exist beyond our imagining, and that the only way to protect what we love is to be strong enough that no one dares threaten it. Kovich nodded approvingly. Then you learned the right lesson, Admiral. I learned one other thing, Voss added. I learned respect, not fear, though there is some of that too, but genuine respect for what humanity has accomplished. You could have conquered the Council. You had the strength, but you chose partnership instead. We chose survival, Kovich corrected. Conquering the Council would have made us enemies of 47 species. Protecting the Council makes us allies of 47 species. It is simple mathematics perhaps, Voss said, but I think it is more than that. I think humans genuinely wanted friends, not subjects. That is rare in the galaxy. After Voss departed, Kovich stood alone in her office, looking at a photo of Earth from space. The blue and white marble that had given birth to humanity, that had survived the Devourer attack 2 centuries ago, that had built the most powerful military force in galactic history, out of desperation and determination. Her communication device chimed. Admiral, we have detected another spatial anomaly, at grid reference 773, possibly Devourer scouts. Dispatch Battle Group 12, Kovich ordered. Add 12. Standard containment and elimination protocols. Yes, Admiral. Battle group jumping in 3 minutes. Kovich watched the tactical display as human ships prepared to intercept the new threat. Somewhere beyond the galactic barrier, the Devourers waited. Other threats waited too. Things the Council had never imagined. Dangers that would come eventually. But Earth was ready. Earth was always ready now. Ambassador Chen stood before the Council 6 months after Earth had saved the galaxy, and she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Her father commanded fleets. Her mother had died in the Devourer attack 200 years ago, while her great-great-grandmother. But in Earth's collective memory, they were all mothers, all fathers, all family. The galaxy laughed at us once, Chen said to the assembled delegates. You thought our claims were myths. Our strength was fantasy. Our warnings were the boasts of an arrogant young species. You were wrong, but we do not hold that against you. Every species makes mistakes. The question is, do you learn from them? She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of worlds. Earth learned from our mistakes. We learned that hope is not a strategy. We learned that preparation is not paranoia. We learned that the universe is dangerous, and the only way to survive is to be dangerous in return. But we also learned that strength without purpose is meaningless. We do not build ships to conquer, we build them to protect. Not just Earth, all of us. The chamber was silent. Then slowly, High Counselor Threen began to tap his legs against the floor, creating a rhythmic clicking sound. One by one, other delegates joined in, each species adding their own gesture of respect and acknowledgement. The galaxy no longer laughed at human myths. They had learned painfully that human legends were understatements. The ships were real, the weapons were real, the determination was real, and behind it all was a simple truth that the galaxy had forgotten, but humanity never would. Survival is not given, it is earned. Shen left the chambers and looked up at the stars, at the darkness between them, where threats lurked and dangers waited. But she also saw human ships on patrol, saw the lights of council stations protected by Earth's defense networks, saw a galaxy that had learned to stand together. They had laughed at humanity. Now they stood with humanity, and together they would face whatever came next. Because that was the other lesson Earth had taught them. Alone they were vulnerable. Together they were unstoppable. The galaxy had changed. The myths had become reality. And humanity, the young species that everyone had underestimated, had become the shield that protected them all. In space, the exercises continued. The fleets trained. The weapons waited in silent readiness. And on Earth, in a command center deep underground, Admiral Marcus Chen looked at tactical displays showing deployment patterns across 2,000 star systems. "Status report," he requested. "All defense networks operational, Admiral. All fleets at ready status. No immediate threats detected." "Good," Marcus said. "Maintain alert status. The galaxy is counting on us." The galaxy had laughed at human myths. They would never make that mistake again. And as long as Earth stood watch, they would never need